Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to do another fun block in Kimberbell's Pumpkins and Potions Ladder Quilt project. In today's video we are going to work on this adorable ghost block right up here, and he's actually called Ghost number 1. So go ahead and grab your plastic bag or pouch system that you've labeled Ghost number 1, and let's head over to the machine and let's get started stitching. Okay, we're at the machine and I have my 5x7 hoop for this block, and I have a bobbin of white thread down below, and then in my 5x7 hoop I've placed a piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer in it. Alright, let's go ahead and go to the screen cam and let's load the design. I'm going to click on Embroidery, and I'm going to go to my flash drive, and I have a Baby Lock Destiny, which is identical to the Brother Dream machine. If you have something similar, you can follow along. So now I'm going to go to Pumpkins and Potions. I'm going to go up here to the Quilting Designs. I am looking for a Halloween 11, which is here, and I am looking for the 4x6 vertical. Alright, 4x6, 4x6, 4x6. Yeah, we have 2. We want this one that is up and down because the ghost that we're going to do is top to bottom. Okay, so I'm going to click Set. That looks great. Now I'm going to add the embroidery design. If your machine can't add and do 2 designs, no worry. You're going to stitch this out, clear the memory on your machine, and come back and load the machine embroidery design and then stitch that out. So I'm going to click Add, going to go to my flash drive and go back to Pumpkins and Potions, and I am looking for the ghost, which is right here. This is Ghost 1, not Ghost 2, Ghost 1. That's the ghost we want, and I'm going to click Set. It brings it in and it's centered. We don't have to do anything, just click Embroidery. Alright, let's go back to the hoop cam. There we go. So now I want you to pull your plastic pouch system or plastic bag system that you've labeled Ghost 1. You can barely see it there. And I'm going to pull out the fabrics that I have in this. Okay, there's my background fabric, and there's the ghost fabric. Alright, now I'm going to pull a piece of 5x7 batting out of my pre-cut batting stash, 5x7. Alright, so then I'm going to put the batting to one side. Now we're also going to talk about potential embellishment here for a second. In the embellishment kit, they have a piece of gauze, and I'm showing it against the black so you can actually see the gauze clearer than what you would be just on the white machine bed. This is a very cool piece of gauze which they are using on top of the white fabric as an accent for the ghost. Now, this is a really cool idea. I like the idea of it, but I'm not crazy, honestly, about the execution of this. Okay, gauze is very, very delicate. You can actually see in my gauze, I actually already have holes that are in it. There's a lot of holes down at this part, and it frays very easily. Okay, I'm going to choose not to use the gauze on my ghost block only because I don't think it's going to stand up. If I fold my quilt up and it gets snagged on the chandelier beads or it gets snagged on some crystals, it's going to pull and make holes. And while that might give a kind of a cool vintage torn vibe, that's not kind of what I want in my block. I want my block and my project to last and stand up to the years. I want it to be here to be displayed and not have damage to it. And I just, even though I think this is a cool look, even with the 2 layers that they recommend for the ghost, I just don't think it's going to hold up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of my white glitter fabric, which I think will give a cool ghost effect. And when we get to that part in this block where we get to the stage where we would put this down, I will show you how to put it down, and we'll go through the process just in case you still want to use it. You can do that. I'll show you how to do it. I just am concerned about the long-term wear and tear that this gauze is going to take. So I'm going to fold it up and maybe find something else in the future to use it for. Yeah, see, rattling. Okay, raveling. It ravels really easily too, but it does have a cool effect, and I get their idea behind it. So don't worry, if you still want to use it, I will show you at that step how to use it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put everything aside. I know that my background fabric is black. Here it is. So I'm going to put black thread in the top of my machine because I'm going to use that for the first several stitches all the way to the probably even the quilting stage. So pick a color thread that matches your background fabric. Yours may be different because you have the kit, or you're like me and you're using your own stash. So your background fabric may be completely different in color. Could be orange, could be teal, could be anything. So pick your thread that matches your specific background fabric and put that up above. This is the fun part about doing machine embroidery, is you can make these projects your own. Okay, there's a loop, so we want to get that out because it can wrap around and break a needle or worse. You can make all of these projects your own. You don't have to follow exactly how Kimberbell does it, even though that's awesome. You can change it up and make it unique to you. And that's what I love about machine embroidery. Okay, so now let's put the foot down and let's stitch out the placement line for the batting. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to lay down my batting and make sure I've got all sides of that placement line covered. Put the foot down and let's tack down the batting. Okay, so now I want you to take the hoop off the machine, take this over to the table, and I need you to trim away all of this excess batting off all 4 sides. And I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I've got that all trimmed up. Now I'm going to put the foot down, leave the thread you have on top up there. We're going to use the same color thread, and we're going to stitch out the placement line for the fabric. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to lay my fabric down, and I'm going to make sure it covers all of that placement line, which it does. If you have a directional fabric, you want to make sure that you have the top of the fabric here and the bottom of the fabric down here. Mine is kind of like a damask, and so I turned it both ways and kind of decided which way I kind of liked it to go. So I think this will be cool. I'm going to feel for the batting and make sure I'm kind of basically centered on both sides. There's oodles of room in this fabric, so there's no worry. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered. We're going to be stitching down the fabric, and that will actually come to be our cutting line. So you'll see you have tons of fabric. You don't have to be super perfect on getting it centered. Just feel for the batting and get it eyeballed centered, okay? All right, let's put the foot down, same thread up on top, and let's tack down the fabric. Okay, see what I meant with my last comment is this is actually going to be our cutting line. I don't have as much fabric over here as I do over here, but all this is going to get cut off around this line, so it doesn't matter if you're perfectly centered. All right, cool. So now we're at the fun part. Now we're going to do the quilting. I just want to say a huge thank you to Kimberbell for sponsoring me in this project and for providing the Pumpkins and Potions quilting bundle for me to use in this project. This quilting bundle is amazing. It is definitely something that you can look at in order to enhance this project. It comes with all of these amazing designs. You get a cauldron, you get a spider web, some happy ghosts that look like they have little glasses on. This border is amazing. I cannot wait to show you the borders. And you get this cool pumpkin and ghost and 31 on there. It's just a bunch of fun. So if you're able to get this quilting bundle, it's going to just make your project pop. The borders, I cannot wait. Look at these borders. There's 2 of them, and I'm going to try to incorporate both of them in this project. You get enough files in each of the designs to be able to do any combination of size that you could possibly think of for this project and our other projects. And you also get the block towel sizes for the clear blue towels quilting method as well in each of the designs. So I highly recommend, if you can do this, this is amazing. Please use the link in the description below to purchase the bundle from Kimberbell.com. I'm going to use the black thread I have up above because I want the quilting to blend in. I have a busy fabric and I'm going to have the ghost on top, and I want that to be the focal point. So I want the quilting to blend in behind the scenes. So pick the color thread of your choice for your quilting, put that thread up above, and let's stitch this out. This is a 3-minute in row live stitch out. Here we go. That's really cool. That's kind of a very subtle quilting. I like how that turned out. Okay, so now I'm going to take the black thread out of my machine, and I want to put white thread up on the top because now we're going to be stitching out the placement line for the ghost, and the ghost is going to be in white fabric. So go ahead and put white thread up on the top of your machine, and we'll stitch out this placement line. This is like a 1-minute stitch out. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Let's do it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hoop off the machine very gently so I could see what I'm doing a lot better. Okay, the first thing I'm going to put down is the fabric for the ghost. I'm going to make sure that I have all of the placement lines covered on all sides. Okay, we're good. I'm going to put that down. Now, if you're going to use the gauze, okay, you are going to put down 2 layers of this gauze. Okay, I don't have mine pressed out. But basically what you're going to do is the same thing that you did with the fabric. You're going to lay down 1 piece of this gauze and then pretend that I have 2 pieces here. You're going to lay down a second piece of gauze, totally covering the fabric down below. You don't have to line the gauze up perfectly. You just want it to make sure that it has 2 layers flattened and it covers the entire part of that fabric, all right? So that's what you would do if you're using gauze. You're going to hold it down with your stylus the same way that you would normally do the fabric. If you use tape on this, as you peel the tape up after you're done, it will fray the gauze. So be super careful if you use tape that you only use a very small amount up on these outer edges, that it's really not going to affect where the ghost is, okay? So that's what you do. Then we're going to stitch this down. You'd put the hoop back on the machine, and then we're going to stitch the gauze, the 2 layers of gauze, and the fabric in place at the same time. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, I'm just going to slide this off as it ravels around my foot. Okay, so that's what you would do if you're going to use that gauze. If you're not going to use the gauze, then you need to get all the gauze fragments off your block. There we go. So now I can stitch down just the fabric. But it's the same technique. So whichever way you're doing it, gauze or just fabric, at this point we're going to put the foot down, hold everything with the stylus, and we're going to tack down the fabric and or gauze. All right, here we go. Okay, now normally in these blocks, you know, the next step would be that we would trim. Kimberbell doesn't want us to trim this at this time. We're going to stitch out the next stitch first, which is the leaf detail, which is orange thread. Then after we stitch the leaves, then we're going to trim up the fabric. All right, so let's go ahead and put orange thread up above. You got this. This is fun. All right. And so now let's stitch out the leaf detail. It's a 2-minute in real life stitch out. Here we go. There you go. That looks good. Actually, we're going to stitch one more stitch because I didn't see there was black leaf detail that we need to stitch before we trim this up. So I'm going to take the orange thread off the top of my machine and I'm going to load black up on top. You don't need to switch up to a black bobbin down below. This is just leaf detail, so you don't need to switch that out for this. Just put black thread up on top and let's stitch this out. Ooh, we had a loop. The loop out. It's a 1-minute stitch out. Here we go. That looks nice. Okay, so now I'm going to take the hoop off the machine and I need you to take it over to a table, and now I need you to trim away on the outside edge all of this excess fabric on the outside edge. Now if you're using the gauze, it's the same thing. You're trimming the gauze and the fabric as close as you can, but you don't have to be right on it because you don't want to nick the gauze or the fabric. This is going to have a satin stitch around the outside edge, so you have a little bit of leeway. So I would get close, but you don't have to be right on those stitches because the satin stitch will help cover the edges all the way around. I'm going to be using my curved scissors for this. Let's see if you can see that. You can actually see it better here if I lay them down, because you can see that they're curved upwards, and that helps prevent me from puncturing the fabric or the stabilizer down below because the scissors are curved upwards. I highly recommend using something like this for your machine embroidery applique trimming. I also am a big girl and I love the fact that they have large finger holes, so I'm not in pain while I try to trim up my blocks. To me, that's important. If you're interested in this, I actually have a link in the description below where you can get these scissors on Amazon. All right, so let's trim this up and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so the ghost is all trimmed up. I'm going to put the hoop back on the machine. And I'm going to put white thread up on the top of my machine because now we're going to stitch out the satin stitch outline all the way around the outside of the ghost fabric and or gauze if you've used and put the gauze on top. All right, this is a 7-minute in real life stitch out. You ready? Let's enjoy. Here we go. Love satin stitches. That's great. All right, so now I'm going to take the white thread off my machine and I'm going to load black thread back in the top because we need to do the eyes and nose of the ghost. And then we are done stitching this block. You don't need to switch out the bobbin thread down below. You can just leave that as the white thread. The main reason to swap that out in my experience has been like if you're doing a satin stitch and then it's really going to potentially pull the bobbin thread out from below. But this is just a fill for his eyes and his nose. So we're good. All right, you ready? It's a 2-minute stitch out. Black thread up on top. Here we go. Isn't that cute? Look at that. I actually love the way that the ghost came out by just using that glitter fabric. I love the idea of the gauze, but I'm just really concerned about its longevity and it holding up in the quilt for years to come. And I think that this is a nice alternative if you don't want to use the gauze. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the hoop off the machine and let's go over to the table and I'll show you how to finish up this block. All right, isn't that a cute block? Okay, so I hope you love your ghost too. So let's go ahead and square this block up so that it is finished. All right, so I am going to be measuring this block to make sure it's going to be 4.5 by 6.5 inches. So if I look at the outer stitch line, that actually was the tack down line for the fabric, I can see that it measures 6.5 inches. And if I go from top line to the bottom line here, it measures just under 4.5 inches. So it's a perfect way to use those lines to square up this block. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ruler on this outer stitch line. Okay, line her up, and I'm going to go just a little bit past that stitch line. Okay, it doesn't look to be exactly straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to line it up to the fabric because I know the fabric is fairly straight. So let me do both. All right, so I've lined it up with the fabric, and I've gone just a smidgen past that stitch line, and I can make the first cut. Okay, now I've got a straight looking edge to deal with. All right, so I put that on there. That is straight. And I'm going to go to 6.5 inches, which if I'm at 16, I'll go down to 10.5. Make sure it's lined up on the mat. Can I see the stitch line? Yes, I can see it just underneath that ruler. The reason I say that is because that way I know I'm in the right spot to cut. If I can't see the stitch line, then something's wrong and don't cut. Remeasure, rework, and make sure you're in the right spot. Okay, so again, this one I'm going to go to the outer stitch line. I'm also going to use a ruler line on the bottom of my fabric to make sure that I am straight. I can see the stitch line just underneath. And I'm going to cut that because you want the block to be square, and that's the main goal. It doesn't matter if the stitch lines aren't straight, your block has to be square. Okay, so 14 would be 10.5 on my mat because I want it to be 4.5 inches. And I'm going to also use the ruler line on my fabric to make sure everybody looks good. And then can I see that stitch line? Yes, I can. It's just under the ruler. And that is how you get a nicely squared up block. Isn't that cute? Look at Mr. Ghost. That's adorable. All right, so some of the stitch line you may see, some of it got cut off. It doesn't matter because anything under the 1/4 inch is going to disappear into your seam allowance when we sew this all together. All right, so I hope you had as much fun making this block today as I did, and I hope you stay tuned here on Jolly Molly TV for more fun and more blocks in Kimberbell's adorable Pumpkins and Potions ladder quilt project. So until I see you next time, take care and happy stitching. Bye-bye.